So I'm getting our recording up and going here. All right, excellent. So I have my 485 folder. I'm going to open that up and make a fresh note. And I'm just going to get going with some right triangle trig notes here, okay? So here we go. Again, if you want to split screen and write at the same time, that's perfectly fine. If you just want to watch, no problem.
Hey, Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
can we just write on a piece of paper?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's, if you want to do that too, if you just want to keep a notebook next to you or whatever, a piece of paper. All right, so we're going to start off by first doing right triangle trig, and then after that, we're going to move into unit circle trig. So I think you guys have had an introduction to this, and in fact, we did a little bit of right triangle trig yesterday. So we did some SOHCAHTOA yesterday. And SOHCAHTOA is just a simple acronym that's going to help us remember relations between the sides and the angles. So that's really what trigonometry is. And in a right triangle, for right triangle trig, it's a relation between the size of the angles and the size of the triangle. So in any right triangle, so let's make this our right angle here, and I'll call it triangle ABC, so B is our right angle, obviously. If we wanted to find the sine, you have to find the sine of something. Sine is a function, okay? It's not like a number or anything like that. It's a function. You have to plug something into it. And the thing that you plug into it is the angle. So we're going to find the sine of C. And so the sine of C, remembering SOHCAHTOA, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So looking at angle C, the opposite side is here, and the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. Okay, so the sine of C is going to be whatever the length of AB is over the length of AC. Now, if I gave those values, so let's say that we knew the length of some of these sides. So I'll say that if this had a length of 5 and this had a length of 12, we could use the Pythagorean theorem to find the length of the third side. Okay, we could do, 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. And we could solve it that way. However, you may remember your triples from geometry, the numbers that go together in right triangles, that 5, 12, and 13 go together. So if you were to do the algebra, our length of C is going to be 13. That is our hypotenuse. So getting back to our sine, if we wanted to find the sine of angle C, it's going to be the opposite side, which is 12, over the hypotenuse, which is 13. All right, and there are actually 6 trig functions. The first 3 are the 3 that are typically easiest to find, so I'm going to show you those 3. So we have the sine of C, we'll find the cosine of C. The cosine of C is the adjacent over hypotenuse in the middle part. And so the adjacent side, and adjacent means next to the angle. Well, there's actually 2 sides next to the angle, the 5 and the 13, but remember the 13 is the hypotenuse. So that means that 5 is the adjacent and 13 is the hypotenuse. So the cosine of C is 5 over 13. So we have the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of C. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So looking at angle C, the opposite is 12 and the adjacent is 5. So the tangent of C is 12 over 5. Okay, now of course that's only 3 of the 6 trig functions. But once you get the first 3, the next 3 are just those functions flipped over. So we have the sine, the cosine, the tangent. I'm going to do the cotangent, the secant, and the cosecant, all of angle C. So the reason I wrote them in this order is because in this order, so I have sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant. The tangent and the cotangent, those two are reciprocals of each other. Meaning, to find the cotangent, all I have to do is take the tangent and flip it over. So since the tangent is 12 over 5, the cotangent of C is 5 over 12. The secant and the cosine, those are reciprocals of each other. So if the cosine is 5 over 13, the secant is 13 over 5. And the cosecant and the sine, those are reciprocals of each other. So if the sine is 12 over 13, then the cosecant is 13 over 12. Okay? Any questions yet? Okay, and just so you guys know, to minimize my screen, because I'm recording, you can't post questions right now in the chat. I won't see them, but you are welcome to turn your mic on and just shout them out, and I'll answer them as we go, okay? So those are the relations using SOHCAHTOA. Now, what we're gonna do then is use some of those trig relations to find the length of a side. So we're gonna use trig to find a side. For example, if we had a right triangle, so if this was our right angle, and let's say I had an angle of 32 degrees, and I wanted to find this length, and I knew that the hypotenuse was 45 meters, okay? We could use trig to find the length of that side. You want to look at your bits of information that we have. We have 3 bits of information. We have an angle. We have the opposite, or we're looking for the opposite of the angle. And we have the hypotenuse. So you want to figure which of those functions are we going to use, either the sine, the cosine, or the tangent. Well, the sine uses the opposite and the hypotenuse. So we would set this up as the sine of 32 degrees is equal to x over 45. So now to solve for x, I multiply both sides by 45. Okay, so x is going to equal, sorry, my writing's a little sloppy there, is going to be 45 times the sine of 32 degrees. Okay, and that would be an exact answer, but we're going to use our calculator to find this and round it to the nearest tenth. So I asked you guys yesterday to download the TI Inspire app. So if you didn't do that, please make sure you do that today because we're going to use it. But I will go to my Inspire.
If we just have the calculator, can we use that?
Yep, just use your calculator if you have one handy. And that probably is preferable so you don't have to go back and forth. So good question, thank you. All right, so in my Inspire app, I'm going to first, in the upper right corner, hit the wheel so I can check the settings. And luckily I did, because notice that our angle measure right now is written in radians. You don't want that, okay? We want to make sure that our angle is in degrees. We will do stuff in radians later. A gradient, don't worry about that. We can talk about what that is later, but we actually is not something that we would do in this class. But I want to make sure that my calculator angle measurement is in radians. I'm going to make that my default. And so now I have to type in 45 times the sine of 32, and it's degrees. Now on the Inspire, if I hit enter, notice that it just says 45 sine of 32 because that's the exact answer. By default, it will give you the exact answer. So to get an approximate answer, I click and hold the enter button, and it gives this little wiggle here on the left, and that gives me an approximate. So the approximate answer is 23.8, rounded to the nearest tenth. So I would say that X is approximately 23.8. And that would be meters, of course. All right, any questions on that one?
Mr. O'Connor,
Yeah.
So you went into the app and what did you do on the settings? I got lost with that part.
Yeah, on the calculator app.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the upper right corner, there's this wheel here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you click on the wheel, the second one down, you want to make sure that your angle measure is in degree.
When I click the settings button, that's not, like, I don't have the same
Not what you get.
screen.
Here, let me then back up a little bit, okay? Okay, are you at, can you get
Yeah.
this page? Yes? Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. In this page, so if you click new in the upper left corner,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where you can do different things. We're using the calculator function. So if you
Okay, I got there now.
click on calculator, now click on the wheel in the upper right corner
Okay.
and change it, okay? Yeah, thank you for asking. I jumped.
I can't find the app on self-service.
The TI Inspire, the Inspire is just the letter N, Spire.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
All right, good job, guys, of asking questions. Is there anything else? Okay, I'm gonna do another example here where we're using trig to find a side. So I'm just gonna draw another triangle. And let's make this our right angle. And let's say that this angle is, how about 64 degrees here. And let's say the side opposite that angle is 13. And we want to find y. Okay, the first thing we want to figure out is, are we using sine, cosine, or tangent? So you look at the angle, and you look at the two things that are interesting in the problem, the 13 and the y. Okay, so according to the 64 degrees, that's the opposite, that's the adjacent, and opposite and adjacent is tangent. So our equation is going to be the tangent of 64 degrees is 13 over x. Okay, tangent of 64 degrees is 13 over x. So to solve for x, I have to multiply both sides by x. And that leaves me x times the tangent of 64 degrees is equal to 13. But then I have to divide both sides by the tangent of 64 degrees. So in this case, my x exact answer is going to be 13 divided by the tangent of 64 degrees. And now I'm going to go to the calculator and figure that out rounded to the nearest tenth. So that was 13 divided by tangent of 64 degrees. Remember, I have to click and hold to get my approximate, and it's approximately 6.3. Okay, again, I just did 13 divided by the tangent of 64. Okay? All right, I'm going to keep rolling with one more part of our notes. Are there any questions yet? Okay, well then the next part, and which will be the last part, is to use trig to find an angle. All right, so to do that, if I had a triangle, and let's say I wanted to find that angle now, not a side length, but an angle. And let's say I knew that the adjacent side was 52 and the hypotenuse was 98. All right, the first thing I would have to do is figure out which of the trig functions are we going to use. Are we going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? All right, well, in this case, I know I see my x, I have the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so that means I'm going to use the cosine. So my equation is the cosine of x is equal to 52 over 98. So when you are trying to find an angle, okay, that means you are going to use the inverse button. So what I'm going to do is on my calculator, I'm going to do the cosine with this little -1. That means inverse cosine of 52 over 98. And I'll show you where that button is in just a second. So I'm going to find the inverse cosine of 52 over 98. So here is where we would find the cosine. If I click and hold, notice it brings up some other options. I want to do the inverse cosine of 52 over 98. And remember, I have to click and hold the enter and approximate that. And so rounded to the nearest tenth, it's the 57.9, but rounded up is going to be 58.0. So that means that x is approximately 58.0 degrees. Any questions on that?
I have a question about the calculator one.
Yeah.
About the calculator. If you just like pressed enter again, would that like make a difference if you press and hold to the approximate?
I don't know. So if I press enter and enter again, on mine it appears to come up just the same thing, Sadika.
Oh.
Okay. I do think you have to press and hold, at least on the one that's on the iPad.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So we did 3 things. We did the SOHCAHTOA, and then we found a length using trig, and we found an angle using trig.